it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. Part 1. I'm a celebrity. I'm not bragging, just stating the facts. I've been in really big movies that you've probably seen. But I'm also a female and I get everything that comes with being a pretty girl starring in nerd culture action movies. I've had stalkers, I've had my run-in with grabby fans, I've had deep fake pornos made of me, and I've dealt with it all. I thought I'd grown numb to it. But this current thing really tipped the scales. It scared me like nothing else. I was between movies and staying at my home relaxing for a few weeks. Well, being paid millions for your work is fun, but I barely have the free time to enjoy it. But that may be the biggest first world problem ever. I share my house with a live-in nanny, my 6-year-old son, and a maid and chef during the daytime. I've contracted 2 bodyguards to be with me at all times when I leave the house. When I'm home, one stays inside and one stays outside in his vehicle. They switch off every week. Mel and Tony. Both good guys. Well, now you know the cast of characters in this virtual murder mystery. The really creepy stuff began the day I flew back home from my filming location. Most of the first day I'd spent with my son. I'd been gone for 2 months and missed him so bad that it physically hurt. That's why I didn't notice the ominous message until nighttime, after me and Amanda put my son to bed. I sat down at my PC to check my socials. My new movie was trending on Twitter, and they just released a trailer and the hype train was revving up. Yes, I could have checked my work emails with the phone, but I had a system, no work-related things on my phone. And my phone was a safe place. My constant friend went away from my home and family. It was easy to let your phone control you if you didn't set boundaries. I suffered a series of panic attacks when I was younger, and that social media and the business overwhelmed me. When my first movie blew up and made me a household name, my therapist taught me to have a whole separate device for work stuff. I'd forbidden myself from any stress on my personal phone, and it actually helped. So now I sat at my desktop PC, with dual screens and a glow-in-the-dark keyboard. I'd instructed my nephew to build me a capable PC, and he went all out like I was a professional gamer. He built his dream PC, but at least I could check my email. I answered a few emails from my agent, scheduled an appointment at my salon. I needed to be a brunette for my next movie. Ordered a gift for my previously mentioned nephew, turning 17 this month. As I was checking the rest of my emails and sorting out spam for the junk folder, I saw a message marked in all caps. Ms. J, please read a message. Urgent. I was a little frustrated as I clicked on the message to delete. This was supposed to be my secure work email, but sometimes fans found them out and bombarded my inbox. I continued clearing junk mail and saw the same message at least 3 more times. From user Herald of the Void at livex.com. Either he was one of those obsessed fans or he had a bot spamming me. I was mostly done when my speaker made the new message sound, and another message pushed the older ones further down the line. From Herald of the Void. Subject, Ms. J. I know you came home today. Well, the rest of the subject line was cut off. I felt my stomach drop. Oh God, it's another cyber stalker. Do I really even want to click on this email? My mouse cursor hovered over the email. As if the sicko on the other end could sense my trepidation, another message chimed in, and I went from scared to angry. From Herald of the Void. Subject, it's about your son's safety too. I knew all the dangers when I took the job. I knew I had rabid fans all over the world. I knew some of them were fucked in the head. Somehow they thought that they owned me, or I owed them something because I was attractive and a nerd. I tried desperately to keep my son separated from the paparazzi, creepy fans, and the Hollywood bullshit. And so, I clicked the message out of anger. Dear Jay, I'm breaking one of my self-imposed rules that I've placed on myself. I'm coming directly to the subject of one of my simulators. I break my silence in order to bring a troubling matter to your attention. I am a video game programmer and designer, but you won't find me working for any big company like EA or Activision. The games I've made are high quality, but exclusively only to the client who commissioned the game in the first place. The games I create are of a particular matter for clients with a rare exposition. The games I create would be considered shameful or troubling if my clients were discovered playing them. Yes, some are pornographic, but that's not where the extreme taboo comes from. I scooted in closer to the monitor. I'd barely gotten into the mysterious message, and my spidey sense was going off. It's like I knew this would be a moment to change my life. Before I knew it, my hand had gone for the drawer where I usually kept my cigarettes. The empty box inside had a sticky note with my handwriting on it reading, "Be strong, for Jacob." I quit 2 months ago for my health and my son, but I was about to receive a very convincing reason to relapse. The message continued. I create realistic and graphic murder simulators for paying clients. The service I provide is very customizable. The client can request the name, age, and appearance of the virtual victim. The client can give me any number of details to make it as accurate or surreal as they want. Right now, you probably scoff at my profession. Maybe you think me no better than a porno director or a virtual snuff film creator. But studies have shown that people exposed to extreme violence in video games rarely escalate to committing actual crimes in reality. I believe I give a virtual alternative to real-life violence, an outlet for the darkness inside us human beings. We are just highly aggressive and territorial primates that still think they're trying to survive in the jungle. Our brains haven't evolved to a point that calm and reason always prevail. That's why I utilize this technology to pacify man's homicidal and toxic desires. Well, I was intrigued, and a little afraid as I read further. But I did roll my eyes at the gratuitous pontificating of the author on the other side of the message. He had people all figured out. But, Miss J, I am a fan of yours, and I'm afraid your life may be in real danger. The client has commissioned me to create a murder simulation with you as the victim. I usually get requests like this. Politicians, actors, and ex-wives are the most requested for virtual victims. People in the public limelight make for the most detailed victim murder scenarios I can create. The privacy invasion of social media has helped me craft more accurate, personalized scenarios also. I can import a scan of your face into my game, and I can take your voice and use it for dialogue, and for the screams of pain. I've created an AI learning algorithm that can help create deep fakes of your face and voice, to make you do or say whatever the client asks me to create. Well, everything was going normal, or as normal as it can be in my line of work. The client had wanted pictures, voice lines, even the layout of your home. And these details are things that can be pulled from your movies, your home from drone cams, and pictures of you on Instagram. Well, I blushed in embarrassment. I knew a lot of my life was out for the world to see, but I tried to keep my house and kid private, like my very own safe place. But I had shared pictures of Jacob inside my home on my own personal, private accounts that I only shared with family and close friends. I had to close the account after a couple of months when creepers somehow infiltrated it, pretending they were people I went to high school with and catfishing most of my family. What's worse is that the man who lived in my house before was a popular athlete during his rookie year. He had MTV come by and do that dumb show Cribs. The dumbass just helped everybody case his house to be burglarized. What weirded me out was how creepers dug up old high school yearbooks to impersonate friends from high school. It takes a strange persistence to get that close to me, and I was feeling that same uneasiness again. The letter continued. The client wanted the standard package: home invasion, multiple torture methods. The client kept wanting more, sending more audio, more pictures, wanting more scenarios. He kept paying and I kept programming. But this is where things got out of hand. He asked for another murder victim, Your son. I literally gasped when I read this, like I was acting in one of my movies. This had gone too far. Nobody brought my son into their sick fetish. Well, I had to read on. I had to find out why this programmer had contacted me. Then pictures of your son started coming from the client. Some easy enough to find with some digging. But then the audio came. I think whoever the client is, the client wanted a male avatar. It's someone close to you, somebody inside your house. I think his fetish, his fixation on you, is escalating to real-life violence. I need you to play the alpha build of the game. I need you to go into your own murder to play detective. Only you can piece together who it is that wants to kill you. I believe this isn't a fantasy. Its practice runs for the real thing. Well, I may have a despicable job, but I'm not evil. I will not be complicit in murder, especially murder of children. Well, my stomach dropped as I scrolled down and saw a file to unzip. That could be a trick, or a Trojan horse virus. This could just be another convoluted way to hack my computer. So I sat there quietly for 10 minutes, mouse hovering over the file. I decided to take the risk. I had to keep my son safe. The file unzipped and started quickly, blanking out my screen. A bizarre 2D image faded into existence, very reminiscent of the development studio intros in the credits before a legitimate video game. It was a disturbing image of a man on a cross, like the Christian iconography you could find in any Catholic church. But where there should have been the face of Jesus or some poor sinner, there was the profile of the head of an enormous crow. Its beak opened in a scream, and its black pool of an eye was staring back at me. As I looked closer, I realized the crowman had multiple arms and legs, also spread out and nailed on arms of the cross. I guess it was supposed to be a parody of the Vitruvian Man created by Da Vinci. I knew the image was meant to be disturbing, sacrilegious, and cryptic, something a creeper would do to make himself seem edgy. The crucified, anthropomorphic crow was drenched in red blood. The blood was animated to splatter onto curvy words below its hanging body. And these words were being held together by thorny vines. The vines strangled words said, "The Crows of Flesh Collective." And this too faded off the screen to get to the main title screen. Text showed up with a fully rendered 3D model of my face staring back at me. Almost another parody of the beginning of Mario for the N64. It was surreal. I was staring at my idly blinking and breathing double. The starlet's last night, in a blocky red font above my visage. My face was realistically accurate, highly detailed, and very spooky to see. I'd done mocap face scans and all other such things for tie-in video games for my films, but this was the best yet. This wasn't a lifted asset from one of the other games either. It was an original creation. I clicked my mouse with impatience and received a jolt of surprise as my digital face quickly contorted into a screaming face of agony. Both eyes blackened and swollen, front teeth busted out, and nose splattering blood down my face. A horrid and distorted scream leapt from my two speakers. I screamed in unison with my computer counterpart as my beaten face flashed into a skull and disappeared, leaving a new set of options to choose from. The text menu read, "Skip to scene. A. Home invasion, start on the street. B. Slasher, start inside the house. C. Torture, start in the kill room. Currently unavailable, in development." I took a moment to consider. I hated every second I had to play this sicko's fetish material, but I had to find out if the freak had content about me that couldn't be found on the web. Most importantly, I had to make sure my son wasn't in danger. I chose option B, in a desperate hope it would allow me to spend less time in the game world. As soon as I found the evidence of a viable threat, I'd contact my security team to revamp every safety protocol they had in place. The game started in the first person in what looked like the foyer of my home. It took me a bit to get familiar with the controls. I had a big brother growing up, so I knew my way around GoldenEye, Half-Life, and Team Fortress. Many summer days of me and my sibling taking turns on my mother's clunky family computer, downloading anime and Linkin Park videos, scaring ourselves with horror games, and destroying the computer with viruses from LimeWire. I just had to let the muscle memory settle back in from those distant days. First thing I did in-game was look down at my feet in an attempt to see what my POV avatar looked like. But it wasn't like the old days when the programmers didn't include the player's body, and you just seemed to be floating around as a set of arms in a shadow. Well, I was in luck, sort of. Black boots, black pants, black shirts. Well, not much to go on, but the body appeared to be masculine. I looked around the digital recreation of my home. Most of the lights were off, leaving me hidden in greys and blacks. Only the green, rapidly blinking of my alarm panel gave any colour to the dark foyer. I approached the panel and triggered a text prompt on my screen saying, "Enter code to deactivate." A close-up of the number pad filled most of the screen. I swallowed hard before typing in the actual security code to my house. Nobody should know the code but me. And yes, I know this was stupid. I changed that code ASAP. But even my 2 security guards didn't know it. They had to swipe their keycards and enter a PIN. I sighed as red letters popped up on the screen saying, "Incorrect code. Use counterfeit security badge or finish your business before the police arrive." Finish your business? I asked myself. Could you speedrun the whole thing by setting off the alarm and then just run up and smack the intruder on the head? Of course, I knew where my room was, but I wanted to explore the rest of the house first. It was a 1-to-1 scale replica of the real thing. Same light fixtures, same tiled, same late 70s Art Deco vibe. When I first bought the house in this palm tree-shaded, gated community on a rolling hill, my nephew would jokingly quip, "Yeah, this looks like the mansion from the Manson family murders." I laughed at his dark humor then. Now the joke didn't seem funny at all. One thing I did notice as I walked around my digital house was that none of the furniture was the same as its real-life counterpart. This was good. It meant the freak that commissioned this game was only guessing how the inside of the house looked, or just didn't care. Maybe it was just some harmless, twisted fantasy and not a real threat. The time came for me to check out my room. I stood in the virtual hallways facing my door, my son's closed door to my right. The prompt on the screen, E to open, mocked me, but I finally did press the button, causing the door to creak open slowly. I stepped into my dark room. My bed was empty, and there was only a glowing light coming from the in-game computer monitor. I could see the silhouette of me, sitting in the swivel chair, back to the hallway, preoccupied with something on the glowing screen. I immediately felt a shiver go down my back, and felt as if there were eyes on my back in real life. It was surreal to be a killer, sneaking up on my virtual self while I sat in the exact same spot in real life. I couldn't take it, so I left the game to quickly hop out of my chair and lock my door. Feeling safer, I returned to my computer and took a seat to continue the game. Somehow I jostled my keyboard when I took a seat, causing my player to unsheath a knife with a stereotypical shing sound effect. The NPC modelled after me stood up from her keyboard, glitched in and out of a T-pose, before turning to me and saying, "Oh my God, who are you?" Well, this freaked me out completely. It was my voice playing back through my computer speakers, for damn sure. But the cadence of the dialogue sounded stilted and unnatural, like it was a couple of voice lines spliced together. My digital double darted away from the computer, obviously alerted to the knife-wielding killer in her room, and was trying to escape. But her AI pathfinding must have been off, because she ran directly at me, before turning on a dime to retreat further away. I had no clue what to do, and swiped at her with my knife out of panic. I heard her scream in my voice, followed by the telltale thunk of landing a hit marker in a shooter game. "Oh, shit, sorry," I yelled out to my double, like she could possibly hear me. Now my likeness character was holding her side and limping away, dragging a foot like the injured animation in the RE games. She went to a shadow on the far wall and began doing something by the bookcase. I got the prompt. Press F1 to open kill bag. When I pressed it, a new window popped up over the game, but the sound continued in the background. It was a grid pattern similar to the inventory screen in any RPG. I cycle my mouse over the items within for a quick description. A knife, handcuffs, chloroform rag, pliers, duct tape, taser, and a syringe labeled special cocktail. I'll knock myself out. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I said out loud again to nobody in particular. I was really just trying to comfort myself during this surreal situation. I couldn't bring myself to murder my computer self, so taking a chloro nap was the best option. After selecting the chemical-drenched rag, I hit F1 to close the window. To my surprise, my video game doppelganger had vanished. I spun the camera around, searching for my sneaky self, but my victim, me, was just gone. I thought at first it was a glitch. The game had blipped my character model out of existence, and I would have to reload the game. But then I saw something peculiar. The corner where I'd last seen myself had a bookshelf pushed to the side, with a secret door revealed. Oh shit! The panic room! I yelled. I quickly looked up from my computer to the real-life version of the wall with the door on it. When moving in years ago, the realtor had told me about the panic room installed by some CEO that got scared after watching the Jodie Foster movie. Now, the CEO had either had a short attention span due to a coke problem, or legal problems causing him to disappear to a country with no extradition laws virtually overnight. The runaway CEO had left his panic room project halfway finished. Just an empty room with a locked door with an entry code nobody knew. So I had a bookshelf placed over it, and had quickly forgotten about it. Well, besides, I had 2 armed guards and a burglar alarm. In a sane world, that would have been way enough. Oh God, though. He has the blueprints to my home. He thinks the panic room is operational, I thought fervently. So he doesn't know what's going on inside my house. He's just a pathetic loser with a murder fetish. I found a sense of relief come over me, and I quickly hit escape to pop up a logout menu. I felt gross, like mushed up paper towels floating at the bottom of a dumpster. I'd have to take an extra long shower tonight. Maybe hire an extra bodyguard for the next couple of months or years. What do you want? Came my voice from my computer's twin speakers. I went back to the live in-game screen and noticed a small surveillance camera flash with a red light above the panic room door. I'm gonna call the cops. You need to run. My voice came again at a choppy cadence, like my dialogue had been spliced together from multiple movie lines. I guess the game wasn't over. Well, I would think it'd be game over if the victim-to-be made it to a safe place or escaped. A new window popped up at the bottom of my screen. It was a dialogue box, and there was a list of possible replies. Option A, intimidation. Come out here now, cunt, before I burn this house down and kill anyone coming to save you. Oh, the C word wasn't censored, but I refused to write it down. God, I hate that word. Option B, bluff. I can do this all night. Your phone line is cut, signal's jammed, and the guards are dead. I wanted you to run to your little cage. Option C, negotiate. You may be safe in there, but your little angel is still out here with me. My stomach dropped. There was an option to hurt my child. How sick was the creep who wanted this? How sick was the creep who made this? I clicked option C, having to know how far this scenario could go. I secretly hoped I could hear the home invader's voice, but it just skipped to my digital twin replying with a line from one of my early movies. My character screamed, "Don't hurt my baby!" Text popped up at the bottom of the screen saying, "Use her son to terrorize." Oh, convince her to come out. I had to stop for a while and compose myself. My hand on the mouse was shaking. How sick and depraved the world could be that some sicko got his jollies off by fantasizing about hurting kids. I realized I might have to smoke after this. Something a little more bohemian than regular cigarettes. I'd need it if I didn't want to suffer a panic attack. I walked my player to my son's room. I had to push through to look for any clues. I opened the door and stepped into the dark room. Colorful decorative letters were pinned to the wall, hanging over a small bed, spelling out the name of my son. Jacob's Clubhouse. Wait, did I say Alex earlier? Oh, whatever. Both names are fake. Let's go with Jacob now. I walked up to bed to see the model of a small boy turned away from me, facing the wall, sleeping on a bare bed with no covers or pillow. I pressed the E button to interact, and the boy woke up straight away from a deep sleep to turn and face me with no hesitation. "Oh, Lord, my baby," I said as I looked upon the perfect recreation of my son. I had expected a plain, unassuming asset to represent my 6-year-old son. The whole game was about me, wasn't it? I doubted the client wanted the programmer to focus too much on designing my son. He was just going to be used as a tool to lure me out of hiding anyways. Well, the least I expected was a player model around the same hair color and approximate height of my son. But this child was spot on with its real flesh and blood counterpart. The freckles, the curly hair, the blue eyes, the dimples. Somebody had done their research. What's going on?" my child asked in a voice very similar to the real thing. But there wasn't enough for me to pin it down as his actual voice. The child just sat up straight, stiffly, and cocked his head to look in my direction. Again, dialogue options popped up. Option A. "I'm the boogeyman, Alex, and I've come to hurt you real bad. Grab him." Option B. Lie. "I just gutted your whore mother, and now it's your turn to scream." Option C. Use sign language to tell him to be quiet. "I'm one of your new bodyguards. Your mommy sent me to come and get you. Quick, grab my hand." Well, this was it. This was the evidence I was searching for. Well, previously I mentioned I had a 17-year-old nephew and 6-year-old niece just 3 months older than my son. She was deaf, and of course her parents learned sign language for her. Well, we decided to teach Alex ASL from a young age too, so my son could communicate with his cousin. Well, I'd had a hard time learning ASL, but I learned the bare basics. My son took to it quickly and was fluent in it. When he wasn't practicing with his cousin, his nanny Amanda practiced with him, so this was a rather alarming and deeply personal tidbit of private information. I selected option C, and my son clipped out of bed and appeared to teleport in front of me. I guess there's no animation created yet for him getting out of bed naturally. "Lead the boy back to the panic room and persuade Jay to open the door," a new objective instructed me at the top of the screen. I pressed the S key to walk backwards out of the room, keeping the camera watching my son as he stood awkwardly by his bed. As the distance increased between us, I thought that his AI was broken. But at the last moment he took off in a stuttering jog to catch up with me. Flashbacks of babysitting Natalia from GoldenEye 64 racked my brain. Now, the stage was set. Me and my virtual son stood in front of the panic room door in-game. A loading icon flashed at the top of the screen and the frame rate dropped to a crawl before jumping back to life. "Don't hurt him," came my pleading voice from what I assumed was inside the panic room. "I'll come out. Don't hurt him," my voice repeated in the same copy-paste repetition. There was no animation of the security door opening. My virtual doppelganger just blipped into existence in front of me, T-posing for a split second. Well, as rank as some of the programming had been up to this point, I noticed what aspect of the game was giving the most attention. It was my likeness. My facial expression scripted to be terrified, my body shaking, my posture slightly hunched. And my body, Spot on accurate. I mean, too accurate. My character was wearing a white silk slip and clingy booty shorts. And I was over-sexualized to the point where I could tell my character wasn't wearing a bra and was probably suffering from a severe wedgie. Option A. Kill her. Option B. Subdue her. Well, of course, no matter how morbidly curious, I wasn't going to select option A. So I chose option B, and my character became equipped with a needle in his hand and poked towards my trembling body double. The special cocktail must have been potent because my character immediately ragdolled and collapsed to the ground. "Mommy!" screamed my son in a voice pitched to a higher tone. I turned the camera towards him and read the prompt. "Silence, child." I clicked the key to be greeted by a sickening crunch as my child's head twisted abruptly to the side, and the boy fell to the ground like a marionette with its strings cut. "Oh, God!" I screamed, pushing away from the keyboard in an instinctual act of revulsion. If my chair didn't have wheels, I would have tipped over. "Don't kill him!" I once again screamed as I watched the image of my dead son slip in and out to the ground slightly. "Just knock him out, you bastard! You stupid bastard!" I was surely going to wake my real-life son if I kept on screaming at nothing alone in my room. No, that wasn't right. I wasn't screaming at nothing. My emotions were directed at something tangible. I was scared, but more angry than scared. I was cursing the programmer of this damn game, or the sick asshole that had commissioned it. I practiced the breathing method my psych doctor had taught me. I closed my eyes tight and focused on my heartbeat. Once my hand stopped shaking, I opened my eyes. My eyes opened once again, very slowly. I was greeted by the sight of my virtual unconscious self still on the ground, and my mangled, dead son. Comical zzz wafted gently up from my motionless body. I wasn't left too long on wondering what to do next because the game had issued another prompt to hold my hand. Take Jay to staging area 2. Staging area? I asked myself as I clicked on my body, hoping my player character wouldn't snap my model's neck while lying unconscious on the ground. Suddenly the model of my butt and right leg took up most of the screen. I was carrying myself. It felt very bizarre. My player character had hoisted my character's unconscious body over a shoulder, like a fireman carry. I saw a marker indicating a rally point somewhere in my virtual backyard. I hauled myself through my recreated house and stepped outside for the first time. God, it was spot on. Palm trees, pool, gazebo, large storage with attached upstairs apartment. The pool was lit, giving a shimmering, calm midnight atmosphere. I figured all this detail could be ascertained from Google Earth. Well, hopefully it wasn't captured from some freak looking over my privacy gate. Well, now I knew exactly where the game wanted to take my body. A standalone apartment above the storage shed. I hadn't thought about it since my ex-husband stayed there during our divorce. Now it was a room for my nanny, even though she had a room in the house. Well, she could stay out there on her days off to get away from work. But I was only half correct. The marker led me under the steep stairs running up the exterior of the building. 2 green garbage bins were stored under the stairs. My character, now weighed down, slowly slogged over to the bins. Just another insult about my weight. I hit E on the bins and they rolled away on their own. I half expected to hear the Zelda jingle when a new pathway was unlocked. What it revealed, though, was a rusty wheelbarrow, rope coiled inside, a black tarp crumpled behind it, and a standout item, an S&M ball gag. Oh, I cringed so hard at the sight. The ball gag made my skin crawl. I cringed even harder when I saw the options given to me. Option A. Sneak her off-site to your kill room for more privacy. Kill room not available during current build of game. Option B. Kill her upstairs. Make a statement. Well, I guess my choice was made for me, and what a shit choice it was. Before I could click on option B, I heard a commanding voice come over my speakers. "Stop, or I'll shoot." I spun my character around to be blinded by a flashlight from what I assumed was a cop, and the game froze. Bright red text flashed across the screen. "Quest failed. You failed to disable security systems." "Oh, thank God," I wheezed. I didn't know if I could go through with killing my digital self. Hopefully a real killer would be as inept as I was. But this was also a training simulator, a dry run, teaching the killer how to hone his skills. Oh, what do they say on those crime shows? Repetition to desensitize oneself to the horror the killer was about to commit. Slow escalation to real violence. I had to go outside and check under the stairs in real life, see if the same items were stashed. But hold up. I may play a dumb white chick in horror movies, but I'm not one in real life. I was going to be prepared. Taser, cell phone with 911 on speed dial, and pepper spray, or bear mace actually. Oh, you may be asking why I didn't bring a gun. Well, I had armed security for that. Why didn't I bring my security? Well, one of them could be the one that commissioned the game in the first place. Oh, I hated to think about it. Could one of my security guards have a sick fascination with me? I trusted my two guys, but they were both noticeably distant to me. I chalked it up to professionalism, but it also meant I didn't really know them. So I snuck out to my backyard. The night air cool on my skin, with the sound of the unseen palm tree leaves fluttering in the wind. The pool let off its same welcoming glow, and one of my son's toy boats bonked gently against the side with the gentle waves. I tiptoed out of the stairway, running up the building, scanning the darkness the whole time. The idea that this was a trap was not lost on me. Like I said, I've been in horror movies, and somebody could be watching me right now. Under the stairs was just one dumpster, not two, but I silently moved it away to have my stomach dip with dread. There was a wheelbarrow, and shovels, and riding lawnmower. Okay, so what? My gardener used them. Activating my light on my phone, I looked into the wheelbarrow. Tools, some solar-powered light-up lawn spikes, and yes, rope. No ball gag, though. I breathed easy. The ball gag would have been a dead giveaway, proof that shit had just got real. I turned to leave before I thought of something. Well, the ball gag would be too suspicious. The killer wouldn't just leave it out. Maybe he'd bring it on the night of the kidnapping. I had something else I wanted to check, so I quickly turned back. My hand raced to the rope, a thin jet-black length of about 10 feet, of what felt like soft cotton. It was soft and looped in a figure eight. The middle was tied together with a silk strand of fabric. It was bondage rope. Oh, you didn't have to be a genius to know that this wasn't for yard work. This was the rope my killer was going to bind me in. I took off back to the safety of my house then. But was it safe? Well, I had a list of suspects that all pretty much lived with me or had access to my home. All I knew was that I had to play more. I had to dig deeper for clues on who planned to kill or kidnap me. I had to protect my home from this monster. I sent one message back to the enigmatic Herald of the Void. Send me the link to the kill room. Part 2. Cutting deeper. I need the newest update from your game, I told Herald of the Void over the chat that he'd set up for us. This is already a big risk I'm taking helping you, Miss J. Are you certain you can't get what you need from the prototype version I've already sent you? I've combed through all the game's levels. I've seen every twisted ending, every branching choice. I've even hacked the game and opened up the config. I know opening the command console wasn't hacking, but my nephew had advised me to play dumb to get more information out of the shady developer. Yes, I did tell my nephew. Oh, let's call him Daniel for now. I was alone and needed somebody in my circle to help me. I know how ever unlikely Daniel could have been part of the creation of the torture game. Well, even though Harold of the Void reluctantly told me this game's price range goes between 30,000 to 80,000 when completed. Daniel didn't have a job. Well, he mined Bitcoin, received measly Twitch donations from live streaming, and had to walk the family dogs for a weekly allowance. But I tested him none the same. A true litmus test that only the best actors in my field could pass to fool me. I brought Daniel over to show him the prototype game on my computer. When he saw the first screen, and upon seeing the kill room, he turned pale and refused to play. I had to be sure of his intentions, so I took over the mouse and keyboard to show him some of the worst features I'd discovered. Alright, explicit warning, guys. It gets pretty bad from here in. Well, my extremely detailed character model was strapped to a metal table, stripped naked and begging for mercy. Daniel, red with embarrassment, begged me for mercy too. He wondered why I was making him look at a virtual model of me naked. Well, I felt terrible, but I had to be sure he was safe. I used my killer to cut out my body double's tongue, carving a wicked line from the middle of my bottom lip all the way to the private region. Daniel vomited into the wastebasket under the computer desk. I felt like a horrible aunt. Horrible aunt, but I also felt happy it wasn't him. Well, he eventually stopped, caught his breath, thought some more about what I'd showed him, and threw up again. And if he was faking, then he could give me lessons in method acting. I explained to Daniel that I needed his help. Well, I really didn't want him involved at all. I was just clearing him of suspicion and selfishly needed someone to talk to. But now that I had fake recruited him, I had to give him a task that wouldn't put him in danger. I had him lurk the fan sites to see if anyone stood out as a possible threat. I also had him catalogue any evidence we came across to give to the police in case things turned sour and something happened to me. And finally, I forbid him from looking into the enigmatic Herald of the Void. Even though Harold seemed to be trying to help me, I had a feeling he was dangerous, and he'd be on the lookout for somebody trying to suss him out if he really was sticking his neck out for me. You all may still be mad at me for committing a form of war crime on my poor nephew by making him experience my virtual vivisection, and I totally understand anyone hating me. Well, I hate myself a little too. Since becoming famous, I've been betrayed by the people closest to me, all looking to exploit me or fetishize me. First was my ex-husband, then my first agent, and even a long-time best friend. I figured if my nephew wasn't the mastermind of this evil plan, he could still be being manipulated by someone to do their evil bidding. As gross as it feels to say, Daniel hadn't been my biggest fan until he hit puberty. Once he told his classmates he was related to me, they used the information to bully him relentlessly. Oh, think about that kid that played young Anakin, but on a slightly smaller scale. He also found out he was adopted around the same time. Oh, please don't make me go into why that logic factors in a twisted way. Well, I like to think I secretly knew Daniel was innocent. That's why I tested him so quickly. But I'd be lying. Truth is, I was pretty jaded, but karma could sort me out later if it needed to. Schedule an impromptu fan meetup, came the suggestion from Herald of the Void. There are 3 smaller cons going on in your area in the next 2 weeks. Drop in and surprise your fans at the first, then let them know you're hitting up the next 2. How does that make sense? I'm supposed to be laying low, trying to figure out what mystery man is trying to kill me. How does showing up in public with little planning help me stay safe? There was a moment on the other side of the screen as Harold typed away furiously at his rebuttal. I already knew what his logic might be. Again, I was playing the part of the helpless blonde, now with matching dyed hair and extensions. I got a new list of voice lines the client wants implemented into the game. Really strange stuff. I told him the laptop I was using to generate all your deepfake voices was on the fritz and was being repaired. I made up a little lie about needing actual dialogue from you in order to create a baseline, so I could teach a new AI on my computer. I told him, the closer to the actual requested voice line, the better. and it would take weeks before I could patch it into the game if I didn't get them. I didn't like the prospect of meeting the guy that fetishizes murdering me, but I was running out of leads, and I just found the bondage rope in my backyard 4 days ago. Yeah, he was near and getting bolder and bolder. It felt like there was a ticking clock counting down to when I'd end up in the real-life kill room. I've already added the text for the audio into the game. He already wants a lot of his lines imported, probably so he can read it and get off to it. Maybe you can run through the game again. Maybe get clues on his identity without scheduling a meet and greet with your fans, Harold added quickly. Well, I angrily signed off. Both prospects seemed like shit to me, but only one had me in danger of real physical harm, not just mental. So I reluctantly booted up the torture game, grimaced again at the horrid picture of the crucified crowman, experienced my screaming face, and finally selected the kill room. And there I was, once again transported into a dark medical room. And once again my virtual double was tied down to a medical gurney of some sort. Oh, to not get confused, we'll call my virtual body double VBD from now on. Like she'd done every time, VBD began begging me to let her go. I'd heard it all before, and I'd explored all the dialogue options with VBD from this point in the game. I quickly reached out to turn my wireless speaker's volume all the way down. VBD's whiny voice cut out of existence. It had become almost second nature to immediately turn off the nauseating sound of me begging for my life. I'd already put myself through the real torture of replaying the kill room over and over, scarring my mind by scouring every dialogue line and torture option. It always ended with the player making it clear there was no hope of escape, and torture continued until VBD died. I'm going to have to go to my shrink twice a week for the next couple of decades to deal with what I've done to my poor VBD. I've used pliers for fingernails, teeth, and toes. A blowtorch to cauterize bleeding wounds so the torture session could continue longer. But that caused VBD to faint, so I'd have to reload the game or actually wait a real hour for VBD to wake up again. Or I could use a shot of adrenaline to wake her up, even though too much would cause her heart to explode. I could use hooks and razor wire to string VBD like it was Hellraiser. But I might need to break VBD's legs or cut Achilles' tendons so she doesn't try to run off while you strung her up in any position you wanted. I could remove the skin off any part of VBD's body, either to stitch it back on or cook it up on a hot place and force her to eat it. Well, I blew chunks after discovering that one. And if the begging and screaming got too annoying, I could cut out VBD's tongue or crush her windpipe. Well, that's just a short list of things available to perform on the current build of the game. It's very detailed, very intricate, and very disturbing. It was obvious that this was the one part of the game the mysterious client wanted to spend most of his time on. Something else was strange to me. During all this depravity, there was a distinct lack of sexual content. And this game did everything to the 10th degree. But no sex, just torture. Harold even told me he had many in-game assets to easily make the game more perverse, but the client never requested any of it to be implemented into the current build of the game. It was as if the client just got off on the torture, or really hated me. In-game, I cycled quickly through the dialogue options. VBD stared at me from the table, pleading for her life, and I chose at random what taunt or threat I replied to her with. But then a new line of dialogue caught my eye. "Say my name again. Say what you said the last time we met," the dialogue read, indicating the killer was demanding this of VBD. Well, this was new. And now I was back, thoroughly invested in what was going on in the screen in front of me. "This time say it because I am the most important thing in your life. Say it because you need me to show mercy," the awful text read. "Because I am God to you at this very moment. Don't say it like last time, when you were paid to perform. Say it like your life depends on it." Wait, what? Met before? Oh, I met my virtual killer already. What did he want me to say? I noticed VBD wasn't forthcoming with the information I wanted. As weird as it felt to do, I selected the blowtorch and held the blue flame above VBD's exposed midriff. She let out one of her repeatedly used screams of fright, and dialogue popped up on the screen. "Save me, Kylo. I love you," read the text at the bottom of the screen without audio. Kylo. He goes by Kylo. I tried to think if I knew anybody with that name. It sounded like a code name. Isn't that military code for something? Maybe a druggy thing. The game then gave me 3 new options. Continue torture. Kill her. Let her go. Let me go? He let me live. This was crazy. VBD never survived the game. I clicked let her go and waited. The screen turned black and a message displayed. Sequence not available in current build. I was amazed and highly suspicious. The asshole would let me live even after prying my fingernails off. I just had to tell him I loved him. He said we'd met before. He didn't have audio for this new dialogue yet, and he had audio, well, no matter how shoddy it sounded, for everything else in the game. God, he plans on meeting me, I said out loud to nobody, like I was in a movie for dramatic effect. He needs the new dialogue. He needs to hear me say I love him. Could I turn this on him? Could I go looking for him instead? Or was it a trap? Well, I still didn't trust Herald of the Void. He could still be taking orders from the Stalker. It could bait me to get out of the house and make me vulnerable. I sat for a good minute thinking, weighing the pros and cons. Even if it was a trap, I was tired of sitting here just playing this damn game. How do the writers say it? I had no agency. I was a passive doll character just reacting to the world around me. I was the damsel in distress. So I snatched up my phone and speed dialed a number. "Yes, ma'am," answered Mel, my security guy stationed in his vehicle outside. "Good morning, Mel. I need you to bring on another security guy, someone that you trust, just for a few weeks." "I can do," replied Mel's gruff voice. "Can I ask the reason?" "Look, I'm going to drop in on a couple of conventions in the area. You know, get some fan reactions. Do some guerrilla marketing for my new movie." "I don't know anything about being a movie star, Miss J." Mel laughed. "I'll leave the hard stuff to you. Well, I'll just follow you around. But I can get you a good guy. We surf together." "Awesome," I said back with fake excitement. I was putting my acting skills to work, so nobody suspected how paranoid or scared I really was. This nightmare had to stop. I was tired of huddling scared over a computer, waiting for a new update. I had to take my agency back. I had to drive. I was on the hunt now. I was going to meet this sicko who I was going to love. Part 3. Extended Cut. "Okay, Daniel. You can be at the convention, but you have to stay in costume the entire time. I mean it. Don't even take it off in the restroom unless you're in a stall." "Yes, ma'am," said Daniel sarcastically. "I mean it, Daniel," I chided. "If the creeper is here, he'll recognize you and know we're onto him. Think of it as an undercover mission, like in one of your favorite video games." "Geez, Andy, you don't have to relate everything back to video games," Daniel continued, laying the sass on thick. "I have other things in my life that define me." "Whatever, loser," I retorted, hitting him in his shoulder. "Don't call me auntie, like I'm some old lady. I'm heading over to the convention early. Since I leaked to everybody you were going to make a surprise appearance, it's going to be packed." "Fine, off you go, Watchman. Be sure to film as much of the crowds as you can. Keep this on, I said, handing him the white mask with the ink blot pattern on it. Well, it's Rorschach, not Watchman. There isn't a character named the Watchman, Daniel said with a good amount of nerd rage. Of course, I knew this, but I like to tease my nephew sometimes. Maybe I was used to letting the people around me think I was dumber than I actually was. Some sort of survival mechanism, I guess. Daniel headed out like a man on a mission, and I went to meet with Mel, Tony, and the new guy out in the living room. Mel stood when I entered the room. So did the other two gentlemen, like I was some sort of royalty. I told them to sit as I sat on the couch across from them. The giant frames of all three men looked comical across from me. Mel being the biggest of the three, his linebacker frame, dark skin, and hints of intricate Samoan tribal tats peeking out on his wrists and neckline, all making him an intimidating sight. Next to him was Tony, the friendly face of the security guard team. He was a retired detective with graying hair and a pot-belly. I'd seen him use his unthreatening manner to get the drop on people. He was always quick to smile and talk down a potential combatant. But if things got hairy, he was quick with a leg sweep, and even quicker cuffing anybody that looked at me wrong. I'd seen it happen multiple times. And lastly, there was a new guy. Stinton was his name, and the picture in your head is exactly what he looked like. He looked like a Stinton. Lean body, square-jawed, hooded eyes, and a high and tight haircut. Yeah, Stinton through and through. Well, he was quick with the yes ma'am and no ma'am in a southern drawl. Maybe he said it a little too loud when he replied. Probably a side effect from being in the military. He must have just got out. Or maybe he was starstruck. But he seemed good to go, and Mel vouched for him. So me and my personal army headed out to the convention downtown. All four of us in the blacked-out SUV. The event coordinator knew we were coming in through the back entrance. We just needed to text him when we were close. Tony and New Guy, well, he was New Guy until he earned his name, sat up front chatting, with Mel sitting in the back beside me, his massive frame almost taking up 2 seats. I was always casual with my guys and didn't mind sharing a ride with them or listening to their guy talk. But Mel seemed nervous today. He sat rigid and alert, but not his normal alert. He somehow seemed distracted at the same time. He rubbed his eyes by pinching the bridge of his nose with thumb and pointer finger. You know the gesture, the international sign of fighting off a migraine. He was clammy and breathing heavily. I noticed his left hand was trembling slightly. "Mel, sweetie, are you feeling okay?" I whispered to him, making sure his co-workers didn't hear me and sense his vulnerability. I know how men like these things. "Yes, Sarah," fake name. I'm fine, Miss J." This was the first time he'd ever called me by my first name in the 4 years he'd worked for me. He was a steadfast professional and never slipped. Not that I cared at the break in the decorum, but it was worrisome anyways. Maybe I was being paranoid. Well, shit, I was paranoid. Some monster out there might be planning to skin me alive, and I had to play Nancy Drew to stop him. We arrived at the convention. I walked in for a surprise meet and greet for a certain comic book movie I was promoting. And the crowd went wild. Faces melted. Nerd frenzy activated en masse. Made me feel like a rock star. Loved this part of the job. I was on an elevated stage, talking to a crowd of about 150 people sitting in the convention hall. Most wore masks of assorted heroes and villains. Most were smiling or taking pictures with cameras. I even spotted Daniel in his Rorschach mask, sitting to the side scanning the audience with his phone. I answered a couple of softball questions from nervous fans that came up to the microphone. Nothing out of place, except for the brave 16-year-old asking me if I was still with my ex-husband, or if I was single and lonely. He got a chorus of laughter and applause, and his face got as red as his Spider-Man shirt he was wearing when I told him, "You keep up that confidence, you'll hit the jackpot in no time, Tiger." Well, I highly doubted that's the audio that this monster came to use in his game. Next came the autograph signings. People paid a good $80 to stand in line and speak to me for a couple of seconds. Convention gets 40, I donate the rest to charity. Well, I'm not stingy with money, and this is the best time to suss out our guy. Well, about 50 people in, I recognize the same face come up to the table to stand in front of me. At first, the awkward man wore a trench coat, patchy beard, fedora, along with a prop katana and an anime body pillow. It was a good meme. He could hide in plain sight by displaying his creepiness as a gag. The first time he came through the line, he was too nervous to say anything. I smiled and signed a poster he had in his hand. His face grew red with embarrassment, as he obviously wanted to speak to me. He didn't, and you realized he was holding up the line and shuffled off quickly. The second time I recognized him immediately by his lanky frame, his beard and close-set beady eyes. But he was in a completely different costume. He was in a pretty professional-looking, albeit loose-fitting, helmetless, stormtrooper costume. You know, you're not supposed to do that, I said with a sly smile and a wink. It was usually against convention rules to double dip by getting back in line, even if you were willing to pay again. He swallowed hard and pulled out a smudged-up Android phone from somewhere behind his back. "Oh, do you want me to say something for your followers online?" I guessed. My heart leapt a little. This guy was feeling more and more like our guy. "Yes, Mrs. J, I would," the man said with a severe stutter at a volume too loud for a face-to-face conversation. He turned on the camera and started recording me. I gave my practiced smile and waited for him to give me a prompt for what to say. "Can you say, I love you?" Can I say I love all my fans? Is that enough?" I asked, while scrunching up my nose and feigning confusion. No, came back his voice, even louder than before and without the stutter. "I need you to say, I love you, and then say my name. It's important." Tony, who'd been sitting to my left, pretending to play on his phone, stood up swiftly and leaned over to look squarely at the guy. "I think you should move along, friend. You're holding up the line at the other fans. I do remember you coming through earlier already. Why don't you call it quits before you create a situation you can't just walk away from?" No, the red-faced stormtrooper stuttered in defiance to being confronted by an intimidating male presence. His nervousness made his stutter return tenfold. "No, you have to say, I love you." As enthralled as I was with what was coming next, I have to admit that Tony did his job superbly. He swiftly turned to me and ushered me to my feet. "Let's take 5 backstage, Miss J," he asked nonchalantly and ushered me quickly behind the display wall that they'd set up behind me. The crowd immediately started booing the aggressive stormtrooper and pelting him with trash and empty water bottles. New guy got on the other side of me, bravely defending me from the rogue Monster energy cans. Before we slipped backstage, Tony looked over to see Mel just standing there, staring out at the crowd like nothing was happening. "Hey, partner, you got some help over here?" Mel jumped to attention and looked at Tony in surprise, his 1,000-yard stare gone in a heartbeat. "Escort out the Tango on my 6 while I secure the boss lady." It didn't take a tactical genius for Mel to figure out who the Tango was, and Mel finally marched into action as me, Tony, and New Guy disappeared into a backstage hallway. Staffers let the rest of the crowd of fans know that I'd be taking a small break, and they slowly calmed down as Mel and event security removed the troublemaker. I was super concerned, both with Mel's behavior and stutter stormtroopers. The stormtrooper was definitely wanting me to call him Kylo, right? Well, whatever. The rest of the event went off smoothly, and I was confident in the fact that Daniel had filmed the whole encounter for us to analyze later. If Mel had unasked himself, he would have tried to get Stutter Trooper's last name change, I swear. Well, he would have gotten Stutter Trooper's full name and info before the guy was cut loose from the building. After my time at the event was over, New Guy went out back to pull the car around, and Mel and Tony escorted me around to shake hands and say goodbye to certain event coordinators. I could tell Tony was upset with Mel, and Mel was embarrassed by his performance today. Nothing was said between them, but I could feel it coming off their masculine, macho auras. The awkwardness was palpable. I'd been stuck between two stray tomcats that had to follow you around. We entered a long service tunnel and ran towards the back of the event hall and outside into the VIP parking area. These hallways were always tight corridors with hard angles and low lighting. I'd picked up enough military jargon and reasoning from my time in war movies and listening to my guys to know that they were perfect for ambushes. Well, in other words, it caused my security team's latent PTSD paranoia to start itching, and they'd both start acting a lot more jumpy. Little did I know that I'd set off alarm bells in Tony's head already. Yep, laid back, unassuming Tony had picked up on the small details showing I was more alert too. He knew something was bothering his boss. Daniel even told me that Tony cornered him in the bathroom when Tony supposedly went on break. Tony had noticed I was looking over to Daniel dressed in his Rorschach costume a little too often, and he wanted to know what was going on. Tony grilled Dan for a while in the restrooms before having to get back to watching me. Now, to Daniel's credit, he didn't snitch on what our secret surveillance plan was. Daniel just made up something about doing a guerrilla-style internet blog about the life of a celebrity with my permission. Well, needless to say, my security detail was keyed up a couple of notches as we made our way down the long backstage hallway. Mel was communicating with new guy who was securing the vehicle as we made it to the first cross-section. Tony walked quickly in front of me to step out into the middle of the cramped hallway intersection. He was being overly cautious, trying to get ahead of any trouble and look both ways to catch anyone trying to spring out and attack me. Well, Tony should have waited on Mel. Tony shouldn't have taken the corners alone. But maybe Tony was still a little distrusting of Mel's ability today and stuck his neck out too far, because he was rushed from both sides. Mel saw the attacker to his right first, and his hand went to his holstered gun slung inside his jacket. He held his free hand out and pointed. "Don't do it, you asshole," Tony warned loudly, eyes bulging with excitement. I couldn't see the person Tony was speaking to from around the corner, but I looked to my left and saw the big Skeletor-dressed man rushing Tony from behind. "Tony, behind you!" I screamed, jumping backwards in fright to slam my head into Mel, who was standing directly behind me. Things got fuzzy for a moment as Mel wrapped me in his vice-like grip with his massive arms. My head spun from colliding with Mel's chest as he instinctively moved forward to between me and the danger. I heard the telltale sound of a fire extinguisher going off in the narrow corridors, and suddenly Tony was being engulfed in the white cloud of smoke, powder, whatever that stuff is. And then Tony started coughing and wheezing as the big Skeletor man lifted up the fire extinguisher and bashed Tony right between his shoulder blades, creating an audible oof from Tony as the white fog began stealing oxygen from the air. I hid behind Mel's massive frame as he stood between me and the two attackers. He coughed and wheezed as he pulled his gun free from his waistband. "Tony, I can't see anything. Get out of my line of fire," Mel commanded. I could hear the shuffling of feet as Tony and the two attackers struggled with each other in the thick cloud. And to my horror, Mel leveled his pistol at the struggling mass of people. What was he doing? He could shoot Tony. Why was Mel behaving this way? "Please, Mel," I screamed, banging on his broad shoulders with my tiny fists. "Don't use your gun. Just go in there and save Tony before they hurt him any more." Mel half turned to look at me and blinked away his confusion at the sight of fresh tears streaming down my face. Maybe something about my pleas momentarily gave Mel a moment of sanity, and he tucked his gun back inside his waistband. "Okay, little bird," Mel said with uncharacteristic softness in his voice as he reached out with his finger to wipe away one of my tears. "Mel!" I yelled, getting sick of this weird shit. "What the hell? Help him!" Mel finally turned towards his struggling co-worker and the two attackers. The powdery smoke was beginning to settle, highlighting the men clearly now. Everything was blanketed in white, and Mel squared up with the three men. The two attackers had Tony on the ground and were trying to wrestle his gun away from him. It was a dangerous situation on the verge of becoming deadly when Mel came charging in like a freight train, all 300-plus pounds of him, to tackle both of the attackers off of Tony. All four men were now wrestling on the ground, and soon all four were screaming as one of the idiots had pepper-sprayed and let it loose on Mel, Tony, and Skeletor, contaminating all of them with the burning liquid. I was so enthralled with the scuffle in front of me that I didn't hear the third attacker sneaking up behind me. "Keep your mouth shut. Come with me, you bitch." I spun around to see him. Stutter Trooper, wearing his helmet. One of his hands held out a large knife, the other hand a pair of handcuffs. "You put these on and come with me. Do it fast, and nobody gets hurt." "What do you want from me?" I demanded. "Shut up, bitch. Put these on or Well, I don't know what came over me, but I saw red and gave Stutter Trooper a swift kick to the nuts. He yelped and dropped his knife between us. He went to reach for the knife, and I slid it behind me with my foot. Well, hindsight being 20/20, it was wrong to send a knife sliding towards the bad guys fighting behind me. Well, Stutter Trooper completely lost sight of his knife through the limited visibility of his Stormtrooper helmet, and must have aborted the plan. He took off, fleeing past me, shoulder-checking me hard in the process. He weaved between the four men fighting behind us and sprinted towards the exit at the long far end of the tunnel. And before I knew it, I was chasing after the asshole, only inches behind him. Well, I had to do a lot of cardio to stay in shape, and this guy probably only ran in COD games. I felt a heat in my chest, heard my pounding heart in my ears. I wasn't on the back foot, for once. I wasn't hiding and using others to fight for me. The creepers had come out into the open, and I was going to get my answers. And that's when Stinton earned his name. He was no longer new guy when he popped out from behind a display case and clotheslined the Stutter Trooper. "Hold him, new guy. Stinton," I screamed with warrior fury. Stinton did as commanded and rolled my would-be abductor onto his back, slapping away the Stormtrooper helmet and raising his fist to threaten the weirdo if he had any idea to fight back. This was my time. I'd be lying to all of you if I said I hadn't thought of a moment like this multiple times since discovering that damn game. I'd fall asleep fantasizing about how it would feel to have the asshole strapped down in the kill room instead of me for once. But I had to move fast. So I scooted over to lean in close to whisper into Stinton's ear. He was already blushing, so this would be easier than I thought. "I'll pay you double your rate for the whole day if you do exactly as I say and don't tell anybody, especially your co-workers," I whispered quickly. Well, he looked up at me, red-faced and a little confused. Then his confusion turned to anger. Damn, he was a Boy Scout. Money wouldn't sway him. I had to try a different tactic. "I need somebody I can trust." I put my hand on his shoulder and peered into his eyes deeply. "I promise to explain everything, but first you must listen." That did it. A look of stoic determination crossed his face, and he nodded curtly. "Take a picture of his license and take his SIM card," I ordered quickly. Well, Stutter Trooper protested as the much stronger Stinton began manhandling him. I kicked him in the stomach when he started to squirm too much. "Why are you after me? Tell me now before I get my hacker friends to turn your life upside down and frame you for all types of bad shit. Look, if you talk, I might call off my man here from visiting your mom's house to arrange a CO2 leak," I screamed at him. Well, Stinton looked at me in general horror. I was a little horrified by myself, too. Being afraid for so long had transformed into overwhelming anger, which in turn scared me, but no matter. Stutter Trooper believed me and was just about to shit himself. Some guy on Discord," the creep blurted, his beady eyes bulging. "Been paying with Bitcoin for the strangest stuff. Been asking for favors from the fab community. He puts a big price tag on the most obscure stuff, but he always comes through. and always shows receipts. Herald of the Void? I asked. Stutter Trooper grimaced in confusion and continued like I didn't say anything. I guess my question would seem like nonsense to anybody who didn't know who I was referencing. All of a sudden, 2 hours before you show up with the con, he offers 10 Bitcoin for a list of voice lines he wants from you. Real weird stuff, too. Said you had to be in distress for most of them. Says he doesn't care how we get the lines, so we're just gonna restrain you for a while and let you go after we get the audio we needed. Promise. So, do you know anything about a video game? My interrogation was cut short by the deafening sound of a gunshot ripping through the hallways and past my eardrums at supersonic speed. Stinton let go of Stutter Trooper and jumped up next to me, gun already in hand, as the ringing assaulted me like an aftershock. Even through my ringing ears, I could hear the distinct cries of pain coming from the cross-junction in the hallway where the 4-person melee was happening just seconds ago. Now I saw nobody but a man laying on the ground covered in fire extinguisher powder. It was Tony. Tony! I screamed in horror, forgetting Stutter Trooper and sprinting off towards him. No, man, Stinton said as he pulled me behind him and began running towards his downed co-worker. I held on to the hem of his coat as we made our way down the narrow hallway, all the while expecting another gunshot to come flying towards us from an unknown shooter. I must have gone into shock. The next thing I remember was looking down at Tony, his belly oozing blood, his face pale. I held his hand and must have asked him a million questions as Stinton called 911. Tony pulled me close to whisper in my ear, just like I'd done with Stinton seconds earlier. Even back then, it seemed like a game, a silly adventure, a movie I'd play a part in. But now my friend was dying. What he told me chilled my heart to the core. It was Mel, Tony wheezed. Mel shot me and ran. He escaped with the others. Mel was the ringleader. Mel commissioned the game. He was obsessed with me, and now he had just attempted to murder anyone standing in his way of me. Okay, I promised I'd finish this story today, but, well, life happened and didn't quite get around to it, but we're more than halfway through now, and I promise that I will finish this off next Sunday evening, so please come back and join me. This story is really, really hotting up, and let me tell you, it goes on even more in just an incredible way, and it really, you're not going to want to miss this, let me put it that way. So, next Sunday, you with me here? Okay, great. All right. Well, back again with something tomorrow. It's Monday after all. So until then, very, very sweet dreams and bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. It really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams, and bye-bye.